A storybook home. The crown jewel of Greensboro's Fisher Park for decades. Then neglect and nature changed the narrative. No longer a source of civic pride, Hillside needed new life. A family to write a new chapter for the old house.
Build these walls up again, tall again, strong again. I wanted to be king again, singing from my throne again. I'm gonna build a home in your own mighty ground. In your own mighty ground.
Look closely. The curtains of vines and tangle of trees hide a story, a tale of wealth and civic pride, of neglect and promise. A house that has intrigued a city for more than 80 years.
It's supposed to look like it's 500 years old.
Every brick, every board begins a new chapter.
On this little balcony, we have quatrefoils. If you're familiar with Romance languages, quatra is 4, and so you're looking at sort of like a 4-leaf clover element.
Around each corner, a new narrative.
One of the wonderful things about this house is that it looks like it evolved over time. It looks like it was built over several hundred years. And you see that here on the turn of the intersection of these two wings. You see the plaster parging and the half timbering on this portion of the house that extends off to the north. But then when you turn the corner here, you have sort of a different architectural language, a different scale. The first floor is much higher, and on the second floor, instead of being plaster parged, we have brick nogging that's been placed in sort of a V shape in between the half timbering on the second floor.
Built in 1929, the sprawling Hillside estate sits on the northwest side of historic Fisher Park. Julian Price, president of Jefferson Standard Life Insurance Company and Greensboro philanthropist, built the house for his family. Fast forward many years to new owners who got into a battle with the bank that lasted more than a decade. The house fell into neglect. Well, now a new family has taken over the property and hopes to turn it back into the gem it once was.
I think this house was built to impress, and it was built to entertain.
From the grand staircase in the vestibule, to the Tudor arches bridging wings, to the ornate ceiling crowning the living room, Hillside is a read you just can't put down.
Any old building in England is going to have sags and cracks, and they call it charm there, and they actually like it. So we're sort of now fine-tuning our American eyes to appreciate character and age and things like that. So the cracks, this would not be seen as a negative in my perspective. I think it makes it look more authentic. It looks like a true 500-year-old ceiling.
Every beautiful crack locked inside for years under a cover of nature.
The last time that was really opened on a grand scale to the public was in 1979 when it was a designer show house. And I happened to be about 12 years old, and I came to that event. And so for me, this is an interesting touchstone. This house obviously inspired me at a very young age to be interested and intrigued with historic buildings. And so my greatest interest is that we might inspire the next generation of 11 and 12-year-olds that are here in our community today to understand, and it's an investment that we can make that they appreciate history 30 and 40 and 50 years into the future.
To tackle a project of this size, a person would need guts, a little restoration know-how, and a whole lot of heart. The new owners had all three.
We first saw the house 3 years ago, and it was actually just in passing when we would come visit our friends who lived around the block. And we only could see the top portion of the roof, and we always joked and said, we want that house. We're gonna have that house.
And I guess you could say it turned into a little bit of an obsession.
They researched the architecture and the craftsmen who gave life to the design.
I mean, it was built to the highest of standards back in the early 1900s.
They pictured the families who walked the halls and came to know Sandra, the most recent owner.
We really felt bad for her situation, and we wanted to help her in some way. But we also wanted to help the neighborhood and bring this house back and restore it.
What they thought was a fairy tale.
There really isn't a whole lot to do to it other than to restore it and bring it back to what it once was.
started to look like a thriller.
Which is a whole lot to do. It will take a lot of time, absolutely.
Consider the windows, 130 of them. The original hardwood floors, 9,000 square feet. And then there's the yard, more than 1.5 acres.
I don't even think I realized how many things had to be done. I mean, almost everything has to be done. Anything you could imagine.
Because Hillside is a historic property, Michael and Eric are working closely with the city, county, and preservation experts to do it right.
We're also trying to find the best designers, landscape architect, contractors that know how to tackle an old project like this. How did anybody run away?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I think one person,
I
I'm
feel
not
like
going to
we had
mention.
somebody.
No, I just recently had somebody that seems to not call back after they've been here one time.
Oh, that's right.
But generally speaking, actually, we've had an outpouring of people from the community.
And people are just so excited, and there's so much positivity coming our way that it makes it so much easier for us to tackle on a big project like this.
The history of the house certainly makes for a page-turner, but there's much more to the Hillside narrative. And Eric and Michael plan to add a few chapters of their own.
Our overall goal and objective and what we see for our future is literally our girls running and playing in the front yard of just sweeping grasses.
What do your girls think about this house?
Actually, every time we sit down on a couch or something to show pictures or do something on our phones, they say, "New house, new house."
It's easy to imagine tea parties on the lawn and princesses dancing in the dining room.
But it's almost like, you want to get a little deep, it's almost like the soul of the house was reaching out to us. It's almost like it called to us and asked for our help and asked, they cried.
Oh, God.
It's almost like it knew that we had a family and all that we wanted to do for our family. And it just drew us in, and I love that. I think that's really cool.
Just a couple of dads looking for their happily ever after in a big old house.
It's living a dream.
But it still didn't look like a dream.
No, it was not a pretty picture. It was kind of scary.
Not the house, but the grounds.
So many plants that are called invasive exotics had come in here. Either the birds planted them or the wind blew them in here, and the place was completely covered.
Hillside was hidden.
Poison ivy, some of which had a circumference of 4 inches. It was unbelievable.
Choked by weeds, trees, and shrubs that seemed to shout, "Stay away."
This house needs to breathe.
That means chainsaws and backhoes, clearing and cleaning.
My guiding principle with this house is to let the house be the star of the show and let the garden be a wonderful adventure.
Callaway remembers when the house was a star shining over Fisher Park.
I knew this house when it was spectacular back in the 70s. It's such a relief to know that it's going to be okay and that it's going to be able to come back to its prominence again.
With the land clear, breath comes rushing into Hillside, and possibilities start to take root.
I want to see people in this garden. I want to see people coming to this house. Most of this yard here, this garden here, is going to be lawn, so that you can play frisbee, you can have Easter egg hunts, you can do lots of things on it.
Surprises wait around every corner of this charmer, and Callaway sees opportunities.
I've got a really clever idea for those. I love sedums. Sedums were a popular plant back in the 19th century, early 19th century, and I'm thinking about poking all these holes full of sedums. They'll still continue to release the pressure, but it'd make this garden wall really beautiful.
All in all, Callaway says the landscaping plan entails a series of projects that will span about 1.5 years, and he's taking it just one step at a time.
One of the first projects we're going to undertake is to reset all of these stones exactly as they are laid. We're going to take pictures of each segment.
Wow.
And place the stones back in the same pattern.
With the stones back in place, the sidewalk led the way to a whole lot of changes inside the house. First on the list, paint, and a whole lot of it. Sounds of scraping and sanding echo through Hillside almost daily.
It's a long process.
But like so many others, Nathan wanted to be part of it.
Holy cow. I'm quite impressed. I grew up in Greensboro, and never really knew this house was here. And then when I heard sort of rumblings about a year and a half ago about, trees being removed, and I drove by, I was like, oh my goodness. So I actually started walking through. I had to push back a couple of appointments so I could stay and actually tour the whole thing. History and restoration is really what I love doing. So when you get to tour a house like this, it's pretty impressive.
The condition of the house impressed him too, and not in the way you might think. Where he expected to find layer after layer of paint, he found only a few. The dining room walls, for example, need very little work, he says.
It's very exciting. I pace because I'm just so ready for everything to get going, and every small thing we come across in there is like another discovery. So I'm extremely excited. This is huge. It's huge for me. It's huge for the crew. It's huge for 5 Star. So we couldn't be. Well, we're still kind of pinching ourselves actually.
Every old house has charm and challenges. When the scraping starts, plastic sheeting goes up and masks go on.
So the EPA has the RRP, which is guidelines that we follow, and it's really about containment, protection, preparation, which is, you see all the plastic. So when you disturb lead is when it becomes dangerous. We're doing mostly stripping, so there's not going to be a whole lot of airborne, but we're trying to collect it and contain it all in one area, and then we can dispose of it properly.
First up, the living room. Then the team will work through every other space, creating a canvas for a new family and a new life for this old house.
It's not small. It will take a while, but it's one of those things that you want to do it right. You got to take the time and make sure we're not going to cut corners. We're going to make sure everything is done, the way Michael wants it, and the way the Historic Society of Greensboro wants it, and it's going to wear our name. It's going to wear their name, so it's going to be really important to do it right.
Doing it right became a battle cry for everyone working on the house, especially Michael and Eric, who spent hours digging into the history of the house and planning its future.
There's lots of fun things going on for us here now. On the exterior, they've put in a well to irrigate the entire property. The landscaping has started. They're going to start irrigation soon. The plantings have been ordered for the plants from Chip Calloway, so those will be going in now in the next few months, and the sod will go down next. We've been working with our designers to come up with a conceptual plan of how each space will be used, what will ultimately live in it after the designer show house, how those rooms will be used, and we're starting to look for furniture and things like that. We're looking at upgrading the master bath into a modern bathroom, but we are going to keep the remaining 7 bathrooms original.
They removed doors, fixtures, hardware from every window to restore them all to their original condition.
We're standing in the servants' kitchen. There is a second kitchen behind me. This now was turned into a pool table room, and all of the appliances were removed. So we are actually putting it back.
It's a long process.
I still see it as a construction zone. Everything is in shambles right now. All of the hardware is out for restoration. Every door is sitting on the ground. There's demo happening. There's piles of dirt. It's a mess.
But Michael is a patient guy.
I worked on purchasing the home for about 18 months. I knew it was in the process of being foreclosed. And so I put a lot of, obviously, time, energy, and passion into acquiring this home.
He wants everything to be right, which is why he did a little detective work, tracking down the family who built the house and a woman who once walked, or maybe ran, through these gardens.
Louise Price, Julian Price's granddaughter, was the last Price family member to live here. Her father, Ralph Price, inherited the house. And these photos, no historian that we know to date has these photos of the original gardens.
The photos revealed the Julian Price property extended far beyond its current boundaries.
Today there are some condos that were built here when the land was sold, but this original acre of land was the orchards and the gardens. So you can see this is our gardener's cottage that still exists. This grade today is about a 40-foot wall where the condo retention wall, so they took out all of this gorgeous stone.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous.
The stairs.
Yeah, it's these beautiful stairs.
Miss Price tells stories of growing up in the sprawling manor.
She shared with us, all the good times they had, and the different help that was here and the drivers. I got a photo of a car that on the side of it's all wood. So it actually has routed into it the word Hillside. So it was like the house's car. Yeah, it was the Hillside car. So we may have to get one of those if we can find a replica.
She remembered family holidays and neighborhood parties and playing in the attic under a mural made just for her.
The paintings were done for Louise Price. She said her mother had them done. That attic was a playroom, and so we're gonna cut out pieces of that story on the wall and frame them in some way, and then make the repairs to that space that are needed.
Louise and her family moved to Irving Park, and her father donated Hillside to First Presbyterian Church. The church later sold the house to a local interior designer who lived there for more than 40 years. Michael and husband Eric bought the house in 2016. They had restored other homes to sell, but this one would be different, largely due to two special girls.
Do we need to fix the house?
Purple.
You want to paint the whole house purple?
I want pink.
Oh my, what a pretty house we're going to have.
Elizabeth and Victoria have a lot of opinions about their broken house. It is, of course, their fairy tale castle.
Is this room ready for you yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. No, why not?
Cause it'll be clean.
Yeah, it needs to be cleaned. Anything else? What else?
These are really mess.
Mess, lots of mess.
It is a bit of a mess, but with a little daddy magic.
What do you want to play? Do we play hide and seek?
Yeah.
We've got a lot of trees to play
A happily
hide and
ever
seek
after
around.
is within reach.
You can hide around them.
With their dream in sight, the couple enlisted the help of family, friends, and even a few mentors from their past.
The buzz around Hillside is quite literal. Blowers and edgers, drills and saws sound from sunup to sundown. There's not a minute to waste.
We are here volunteering.
Or a willing worker to waste.
We are his former middle school teachers.
You heard that right. Eric's former middle school teachers, Kathy and Jim Chrisman, are part of the team, working on his house several days a week.
We have been taking hardware off of the doors, and all the doors have come off and all the hardware has come off, the hinges and the doorknobs, and we've taken all the vents off the home.
More than 1,400 pounds, in fact. And what came off has to go back on. But you won't hear these two complain.
I said to Jim the other day that when we are here, all the workers are so positive. There's just such a positive energy here. It's like waking up and coming to work like in an old 1950s Disney movie. It's just like all these little happy characters about their job. It's really wonderful. We really enjoy it.
The Chrismans were there at the very beginning, when Eric and Michael only dreamed of owning this house.
He said, one day we want to have that house. And Rosemary, we couldn't see the house. We didn't know this house was here. And we were like, what are you talking about? Because it's covered with vines and all the trash that was around it.
They've watched it transform before their eyes, all the while working side by side with the homeowners, one a former student, now all of them even more than friends. Family.
I think it's love for Eric. I think it's love for Michael. I think it's love for the girls. They're an important part of our lives.
The Chrismans are in it to the very end.
You just have to kind of dig in there and just keep going.
Yeah, it's about the grid. It's about staying with it.
Like teaching middle school, they say. Of course, there are a few perks that go along with this job.
We're kind of bartering maybe a night or two.
A weekend stay in the beautifully restored Julian Price House would be priceless.
This is a magnificent home. It's one of a kind.
Renovation at the Julian Price House became a spectator sport, with neighbors and curious passersby trying to catch a glimpse of the updates. With new paint inside and new landscaping and plants outside, dozens of new workers were passing through the lawn every day for months and months.
If anybody saw the house a year ago, they would certainly see the progress that we've made.
The most dramatic progress is easy to see.
You can now see the house, which you never could see before due to all the overgrowth, which was a phenomenal amount. So now the house can breathe.
Progress inside includes air conditioning for the whole house,
plumbing and electrical updates, and walls that were stripped and primed.
When you work on renovations, especially historic ones, you're usually dealt with a lot more physical problems and disrepair.
Not the case here. Much is actually staying the same. Most of the walls are staying right where they are. Tile, bathroom fixtures, molding, and woodwork too.
Notice all the wood paneling here. This was never intended to be dark stained wood. It was always intended to be painted from the examination of the paint layers that we've seen.
The dining room will get a fresh coat of paint.
That will be done by the designers when they are selected to do their rooms, and that will be probably the biggest transformation when you see color applied. Obviously, we're standing in a pretty color for 1979 when this house had a designer show house.
Some rooms will be restored to their original purpose when the house was built in 1929. The game room becomes a large kitchen once more.
This billiard table is about the size of the island that will come in the design. So the cabinets will be across here, the sink will still be here. So the layout will feel pretty much the same, but of course it'll be brand new, beautiful fixtures and cabinetry.
There is much to discover inside Hillside.
This is really quite charming. This is the phone closet. So back in the day, if you had a call to make, you would come in here. I'm sorry the door is in the way, but you would come in here and have privacy to sit in this little bench and to talk on the phone. You can see the old wiring down here, and it even had a little light and a window. So it was quite a little charming booth.
Closets, cabinets, ceilings, and floors, they all tell a story.
All the dark strips between the random planks are actually walnut, and the pegs are hand carved, as well as the butterfly joint is also carved walnut. So when we had to cut through for the air conditioning, we were able to see the layers of this construction, and it was fascinating.
I remember this. There was a little button.
Yes,
before, right?
this, as the hardware has been totally removed from the interior of the house. This was a buzzer and will come back as a buzzer. So the head of the household would sit here at the dining table, and if she needed or he needed something brought in from the kitchen, that person could just step right on that buzzer and people would attend.
Floors, ceilings, and the spaces between, their stories and secrets hidden for years.
This is a very, very special opportunity for any city to have a home that is so beautifully designed and has withstood the test of time, and to have such a opportunity to expand on its beauty, bring it forward to the public, and we certainly have a huge interest by just the whole city and even regionally.
More than 30 designers signed on to create the new look for Hillside, and for at least one, it was déjà vu. Walking through Hillside is a bit like stepping back in time for Lee Jones.
As I've been down in some of the spaces, I can recall conversations I had with other people standing in certain places, and so these memories have come back after nearly 30 years.
The house underwent an overhaul in 1979 as an American Society of Interior Designers showcase home, and Jones had a hand in it.
When I was a college student, I was working for another interior designer, and we did the breakfast room downstairs. So I have a lot of fond memories about this house.
She heard talk of another showcase in the historic home, and she was intrigued.
And I said, let me see the pictures of the house. And there was the original wallpaper in the original room from 1979. And I said, I want to do this house.
You gotta do it.
I gotta do it now.
Jones refined her talents and interest over the past few decades, and this time she opted to work in a cozier space.
I do a lot with antique linens and Hungarian goose downs, so the bedroom is an appropriate space for me to do.
The master bedroom is one of the largest rooms in Hillside and boasts one of the home's 2 fireplaces.
Yes, and they're going to retain this, thank heavens. And so it will be not necessarily prominent, but it will be noticeable in the space.
She describes her plan as contemporary with traditional elements, perfect for a young family living in an old house.
And I'm glad to see a young couple come into the house with young children and the house having life again. I think that's very important, very important.
And as much as she loved the wallpaper she helped hang in the breakfast room all those years ago, she's glad to finally see it go. Change is good, and so is preservation.
I think it's important to preserve those things that Greensboro has lost so much of these structures, and to see that this one's going to be maintained would be really nice.
Designers from Greensboro, across North Carolina, and beyond flex their creativity in this historic home.
A room came available, and they asked us to fill in, and we jumped at the opportunity.
Hadley Quisenberry doesn't find herself in Fisher Park often, but the drive from Charlotte was worth it to work in this special home.
I have a 2.5-year-old myself, so hearing that the homeowners had 3-year-old twin daughters, it was just a perfect fit. And I work with my mom, so she's a grandmother, and we really connected to this room and the ideas.
Shades of pink will no doubt wow the princesses who lay their heads here, and creating their special space, nothing short of wonderful. Wonderful, but challenging. A makeover of this magnitude would include its fair share of highs, lows, and sometimes just strange happenings.
We've cleaned out the infamous tunnel that everybody's asked about from the TV show.
Ah, the tunnel. Was it a hideout? A secret passageway? Something else?
Unlocking the secrets.
Homeowners Michael and Eric explored the space with history buffs, but still can't determine its purpose.
I mean, it's just curious why, why is this here? Like, would this have been an entrance from the park would this have been an entrance from the park into the house without going outside for some reason? At least for prohibition or something like that?
Then there's the size and shape of the tunnel.
So as you can see, it gets smaller and smaller, which is kind of another interesting question, why?
And what's the deal with that wall opposite the basement vault?
So at some point, for whatever reason, the mystery continues. You can clearly see that somebody has cut out and replaced it with a more modern brick. So I don't know if we have no answers to this. I mean, we don't know if somebody lost the combination to the safe and this was the only way in, or if somebody broke in at some point and tried to get into the Price's vault.
The tunnel had people buzzing when they first toured the mansion, and then something else.
A very large beehive that had probably been there for years, according to the beekeeper. So someone came, professionally removed it, and they're living in a hive outside of Greensboro and doing very well. We have fresh honey from it.
Surprises show up in every room, every day.
Like the windows, for example, Eric and I forever thought that they were black handles with black cranks, and that was the window. Until somebody took one out and restored it and realized it was all brass, original rose brass. So when you find these things, you just feel sort of obligated to restore them again.
But one of the biggest surprises showed up outside the house, off the screened-in porch.
We had a metal detector club approach Eric and I after the TV show and asked if they could just have a scavenger hunt on the yard. The best find of the day that won a prize was a spoon, silver spoon from the late 1800s or early 1900s, and it had initials of MGP, and that's not Julian Price's mother or his wife. So I actually called or emailed Louise Price, so Julian Price's granddaughter, and it's her mother's silver.
Just a few shining examples of secrets hiding in Hillside.
You just keep finding these things and you feel, there's history behind it.
In May of 2018, the Julian Price House was ready for visitors. Thousands walked through beautifully restored spaces and peeked in closets. And two little girls who would soon call it home saw their room for the very first time.
All right, let's go see the room. Let's go see your bedroom.
All the work, all the sweat, all the love brought them to this point. Dads and daughters seeing their new room for the first time.
What do you think? What do you think?
Enthralled by all that is new.
A unicorn.
It is a unicorn.
Delighting in the colors and textures.
Is it pretty? They're amazing.
Testing the mattresses, and finding fun around every corner. Something this house hasn't seen in a long time.
Is the house broken anymore?
No.
Who fixed it?
Dad.
Papa, Daddy?
Papa and Daddy toiled long and hard on this house.
Should we scrub? Let's scrub. Scrub.
Their children's laughter, salve for the weary workers. Victoria and Elizabeth are the reason behind it all.
More than anything we probably could have ever dreamed of.
Yeah, it's surreal too, that it's all actually here and happening.
This family begins a new chapter in Hillside, their home.
I couldn't envision it being our home like I do now. And it just feels good. It feels comfortable. It feels livable. It feels like it's our forever home.
New life for an old house. More pages in the story.
Remember, we cry when we're happy and we're sad.
I love you, baby. Do you love this house? You have a lot of fun playing here, don't you?
That's where we thought this story would end. But a good narrative often has a twist. One Michael and Eric didn't even see coming.
It was February of 2015 that I wrote the first email to inquire about purchasing the house. So it's been almost 4 years.
Renovation, show house, home. That was the way it was supposed to go.
It's so funny because people will ask, you're done, right? And it's like, no, I mean...
Michael and Eric described the show house as a stage set. The beautiful furnishings hid a lot of work that still needs to be done.
We also then realized there's parts of the house that people haven't seen. So the entire, we're sitting on the first floor, but there's actually an entire level below us that looks just like this. That is not finished. That has to be completely finished. We want to add a couple bathrooms just for more traffic flow, and then finish some things upstairs in the attic. There's some additional rooms that people didn't see as well.
After years of work on Hillside, the couple needed a break from the never-ending list. They wanted to focus on their family, 2 girls growing up before their eyes.
When the show house ended, there's almost kind of like a sadness because it was over. But at the same time, like I said, we were able to focus on our children and go back to what life was like because it was like a year and a half straight of just constant grind. And it was really nice to just come back to our family.
Which meant visitors had a little more time to explore the charming old home, this time in a very personal way.
We just had so many people who came through the house, then wanted to come back to see the house. They want to see it they want to have it open for Christmas to see it. People asked to stay here.
Visitors spent overnights and long weekends at Hillside.
To get that charm, to get that feel, to give you a little bit of going back into history, it's just a good option for people to choose if they want to have a little staycation or something like that.
If these walls could talk, they would tell stories of families talking around the dinner table, neighbors laughing in the living room, community activists raising money for good causes over a drink in the dining room, business deals going down in the study, and friends dancing to loud music all over the house.
If you look at the history of the house, that's sort of the story. It's always been a community space, right? I mean, even back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, if you look at newspaper articles, when there would be, Mrs. Price is hosting tea, when they would put the events in the newspaper and stuff, I mean, there was always people coming over here, and then it was the church manse, so it was always used for, it was used for entertaining. And then even Sandra, I mean, from all the stories of the neighbors, I mean, she had students and interns and things that lived here with her at a time. She had furniture market people, and we've heard all kinds of stories of parties that were had here and all the fun and entertaining. So it's just sort of continuing the tradition in a new way.
Michael, Eric, Victoria, and Elizabeth are now part of the history of Hillside, too.
And the biggest part that we've added, too, is a lot of love. It's been a process of love throughout the restoration, throughout the years of watching them grow while we did it, It's just that to me, like, I don't know, it's beautiful. It's hard to put into words, but I could literally see our picture next to all the pictures of history of the family, of the family that restored, brought it back to life, and gave it love.
After renting the house for a few months, Michael, Eric, and the girls decided to make it their home in the summer of 2019, the storybook ending that so many were hoping to see. You can keep up with Michael, Eric, Victoria, and Elizabeth at julianpricehouse.com or by following them on Facebook. Thank you for watching this special presentation of Greensboro Television Network. I'm Rosemary Plyben.
Hey girls, do you know you're locked in the bathroom?
Yeah, we know we're locked in. We're peeking through the handle, but I don't think it's doing anything. And my goodness, it is warm in here.
I think I see you.
Papa.
Yeah.
Where? Oh my goodness. Papa, help us.
Are you ready? Let me see if this fits.
Watch out. There we go. We're free. Oh my goodness. It was getting really hot.